What's the one thing you've done that you're the most ashamed of? Don't think about it too hard. Just go with whatever comes to mind first. Now hold that thought. So hold that for a little bit. We'll come back to that. And I'll tell you what mine is. So I was in middle school. And it's okay, you can laugh. I was in middle school, and my mom and I were fighting for an entire week. I don't remember why. All I know is that every minute of the day, I was incredibly nervous, fearing that I would have to see her again, and knowing that neither of us was going to cross that boundary to resolve our differences. So in the middle of this week, she took away my magic cards, which was a really bad idea and made me more stressed out than ever, because that was one of the ways that I self-soothe. So after a few days in the middle of this week, I'm incredibly stressed out, and I'm in the computer lab at school with my friend Jim. This is a picture of us years later. He wrote the caption. I'm sitting there in front of him typing, and he's behind me, holding on to my swivel chair. I tried to turn and say something to a person behind me, but Jim wouldn't go slack and let the chair swivel. Now, one of the core symptoms of autism is our hypersensitivity to our senses. The first one being touch. Light touch is something that irritates many autistic people. Many of us remove the tags from our shirts for this reason. But deep pressure is very satisfying. Hugging, the feeling of being enclosed in something, is very gratifying to many of us. Another aspect of this hypersensitivity to our senses is texture. So a lot of us say we hate certain foods, but in reality we can't handle the texture of the food. So for example, I will never eat mashed potatoes, even though I love French fries. They're exactly the same thing, but the texture grosses me out, and I never eat anything with that texture. Cottage cheese, cream cheese, whatever. It's all gross. Another aspect of our hypersensitivity is sound. If I'm in a room talking, or reading, or thinking, and there's someone else making noise, I cannot concentrate until they're done. I have tried very hard over the years to overcome this with zero success. However, I am able to soothe myself very well by listening to my headphones, which give me familiar music that blocks out all background noise, and then I can concentrate very well. Many autistic people are also hypersensitive to pitch. Some of us have perfect pitch, and for those autistic people, we cannot listen to someone singing off key or else they'll go crazy. I am not one of those people, luckily, but I am a singer. And the thing that makes me want to sing is that I am also hypersensitive to intonation or inflection. This is not something talked about anywhere in the literature that I've been able to find. But when I was young, as in elementary school, I would judge phrases not based on the content, but based on the rhythm of the meter. And so I would speak in this incredibly odd way where I would add in words that may not have made sense just because I wanted to make sure I was speaking in perfect meter. This is one reason a lot of autistic people have what's called echolalia. We're judging what we hear based on the inflection and the intonation and the meter rather than the words. So you'll meet an autistic person with echolalia and you'll say, "Hi, how are you doing today?" And they will repeat back to you, "Hi, how are you doing today?" Because they're listening to the meter. It's like when you sing along with a song and you don't think about what the words mean. You're enjoying the sound. Imagine doing that with spoken communication, and you can understand how odd we seem to many people who do not have this. Of course, we're hypersensitive to our sight, visual stimuli. So for example, this picture I took of the sun looks like this to you, but to me it looks like this. As a result, for 20 years, before I realized this about myself, I said, ooh, I hate being outside. I'll never go outside. Every time I'm out there, I get angry, and I didn't know why, and then I found out I just have to wear sunglasses every day, and I'm fine. But for 20 years, I wouldn't get enough sunlight, and I would be pissed off when I would have to go play soccer or something. Luckily, this hypersensitivity can be very useful. So we have an incredible bird of prey-like ability to detect differences in the visual environment very, very quickly. So for example, you look at this picture, and to you it probably looks the same as this picture. But I can tell that this one is significantly brighter than that last one. Now that may not be the best example, but I couldn't play three-card Monte on stage for you right now. But that would get the same point across. There's actually a company called Interagency that hires autistic people only because of this hypersensitivity to do product testing and figure out what differences there are between their website and the website they actually want. And this is incredibly useful to us. And so we...
Oh, cool. Oh, cool. Oh, cool. You're not. You're not. Oh, cool. Oh, cool.
So, oops.
Oh, cool.
So, this is a video of me stimming, which is what autistic people do when we're feeling hypersensitive. This is not a sign that something is wrong necessarily. We can just be very excited, and this is how we express it. It's okay for you to laugh at this video. I filmed it knowing this was a very silly thing I was doing. I was very excited. I forget why. But when you see an autistic person doing this in the community, it's very disconcerting, and you don't realize why this is happening, but it's probably due to that sensory input I was talking about earlier. So you might see someone out in the field doing this because the light is bothering them. And sensory input is the first thing we should check when figuring out why is this person feeling overstimulated. Anyway, so aside from being hypersensitive to irritating noises like this one, the thing that irritates me the most is having my range of motion restricted without my permission. So when I walk past a doorknob and I get my headphones stuck on it, my hormones rush in and my amygdala turns on, and I literally want to break down that door for a minute. But then my cerebral cortex tells me, you have to calm down. You're not allowed to break down the door. And I stand there and I don't do anything. This is a very common autistic defense mechanism. We have learned that because no one else has the same sensitivities we do, that we're not allowed to express them when they're irritating us. When my mom was vacuuming the wood floor and I would scream at her, "You're driving me crazy, why are you doing this?" she'd say, "I don't know what I'm doing wrong." So, I guess the best way I can explain it is like this. If I continue to talk underneath this noise song that I recorded, most of you are going to probably say, why is no one doing anything about this? This is really irritating. This is how autistic people feel most days. Something like this will happen. And it will drive us crazy, but we know I'm not allowed to express this. However, that day in middle school, when Jim wouldn't let go of my chair, my incredibly stressful week, combined with the fact that this is my number one thing that irritates me the most, is not being able to control my own body, meant that I lost it. And I swung around in that stationary chair and slapped him as hard as I could in the ear. And he fell out of his chair and started crying and screaming at me, "Why did you just hit me?" And I yelled back, "Because you're so annoying and you're always..." And then I realized what I had done. And Jim couldn't hear out of his ear for the rest of the day. Now, I immediately felt terrible about this. But, like most conflicts between young boys, this one eventually did resolve itself. 20 years later, I visited him this summer in India. He's one of my closest and oldest friends. But I still feel terrible about this, the last meltdown I ever had. But I know that he has forgiven me. And I hope that all of you can forgive the immature and imperfect me for making this mistake. You know that I was just a victim of genetics and circumstance. And now I want you to think back to what you thought of at the very beginning of my talk and realize that it was the same. Whatever you did that you feel so ashamed of was no different than the story I just told you. You were overwhelmed. You didn't know what to do, and you made a bad choice. But you're a human. You're not perfect. And you're never going to be, and you're going to make mistakes again. And you can carry that guilt with you for 20 years, or you can realize everyone in this room is having the same thought I am right now, which is, how could I possibly forgive myself for that thing I did? But all of us are in this together. We've all made those mistakes. And I hope that you can forgive yourselves now. Is that something I can ask of you? Is this a reasonable request? I want to make sure that everyone feels okay, like they're in a forgiving mood. Because you don't deserve to be judged that harshly. You're a human being and you deserve to be forgiven for whatever it is that you've done that you know you did wrong. And now I want you to stay in that forgiving mindset and think about someone who has harmed you. I'll give you an example of someone I need to forgive, someone who has done something that I think is pretty wrong. There's a school in Canton, Massachusetts called the Judge Rotenberg Center. This is the only school in the country still using electric shock as a punishment for people with psychiatric disorders, including autism. What they do is, if one of their students who is on this shock plan misbehaves, gets out of their seat at an inappropriate time, tries to hug a staff person, they will, using a bracelet which is attached to this student's wrist or ankle, give them a 2-second electric shock. These bracelets are not approved by the FDA. They often malfunction. They cause burns and scarring in these people. And obviously, this is pretty upsetting. Their justification for this is they say, well, it's better than the alternative, which they assume is giving these people a ton of drugs. Now, obviously, yes, psychotropic medication is dangerous and not helpful for people on the autism spectrum. But there are other alternatives besides electrically shocking them like cattle. And I think most of you probably understand this and agree with me here. However, when we try to protest this place and go outside with signs saying, "Stop the abuse," or call these staff people monsters, how are they going to react? They're not going to say, "Oh, thanks, good point. Everything I've been doing is wrong. You're right, thanks." Of course they're not going to do that. What they're actually going to do is say, "Well, screw him." This is called reactance. When someone challenges you for something you're doing, and as a result, you go further away from them towards whatever you were doing before. I'll give you an example. When I was in high school, the dean of boys forced all of us to wear collared shirts. I haven't worn a collared shirt since, because screw that guy. But you see my point. Reactance is everywhere. Those of you who are parents, I hope you remember this the next time you tell your kids, don't do drugs. It's not going to work. They don't care what your opinion is of drugs. So what is the answer? At the Judge Rotenberg School, reactance happens all the time. Specifically, reactance happens when they take one of their students who's covering her ears because she's hypersensitive, and the room is too loud. And they give her an electric shock to get her to stop this inappropriate behavior. After they shock her, is she going to say, ooh, I better stop doing that? Or is she going to say, screw them? And then their students become dangerous and begin to lash out at these people aggressively. And as these people lash out aggressively, then we get problems. And then they actually do become the threat that they were claimed to be at first. Now, the only way this resolves itself when we use punishment is through these people not saying, oh, you're right, I'm convinced, but giving up and saying, I can't do anything. I'm not allowed to cover my ears when I need protection. I have to just sit here and do nothing, and then the staff say, well, their dangerous behavior has stopped. This was a success. And yes, a lot of us are very angry about this. People have been trying to stop this for many years with some success. And yes, you have to get that anger out. You know, run around, mosh, paint something, build a birdhouse, whatever. But judging the staff as people doesn't help. It doesn't help them, and it doesn't help you. Because all they're doing is the same thing you and I did at the beginning of this talk. They didn't know the right way to do something. They were emotionally overwhelmed by a very difficult situation. And they did something that most of us would say is wrong. Now, it's stupid to hate somebody for being stupid. It's not their fault. You know, I don't hate the staff any more than I hate their students. And it's equally stupid, if not more so, to hate someone for hating, because then you're just creating a loop, and you're no better than they are. But I pity them. I pity these people who don't know what to do and who respond with hate. And I think maybe if we start pitying those people who have harmed you, who you want to forgive, instead of hating, we can talk to them, instead of maybe trying to unsuccessfully battle them into submission.
It's never going to work.
What?
It's not going to work.
What do you mean? Do you want to come talk about this? Okay. Everyone give her a hand for having the courage to talk to me up front. Yeah, you can use this mic, I think. Here you go. I think it's on. Is it on?
Hi,
What's your name?
I'm Rachel.
Hello, Rachel. I'm Noah. So what do you want to say?
Well, I was just thinking about what you were saying, and I don't think that forgiving people for something that's like truly, really coming from an evil place like that is going to be effective in solving or changing anything.
Well, I think there's probably a lot of people here who agree with that, and I think that's a fair point. But I also don't think that judging these people is going to do anything better. And I think that if we have this cycle of hatred, it's only going to make things worse.
Okay, but what you would be doing, you know, what you're doing right now, the way that you're talking about this stuff, like protesting what they're doing isn't coming from a place of hate. You know, it's coming from a place of loving people and wanting to change something for the better.
Well, I guess the issue with that, and I've thought about this too, That's how they feel about themselves as they are shocking these children.
Okay.
Is they say, look, we have to punish this person because that's justice and that's important, and if we let bad behavior go unpunished, it's going to continue. When in fact, you're just creating this cycle, and if you hate them for hating, you're no better than they are. And I think I'm running out of time.
Likely story.
But I guess, thanks for coming up and talking to me. And, you know, I want to give this woman some commendation for having the guts to speak her mind, unlike so many hecklers or YouTube commenters or whatever.
That's a shout out.
And talk to me like a human being. And I guess if anyone else wants to talk to me reasonably, you know, about this issue, you're welcome to, especially the staff at the Judge Rotenberg Center, who I want to say before I go, you have the power to stop shocking children right now. You can actually do this. You are capable of having that responsibility. Please stop. I will forgive you for what you have done. And anyway, thanks. I guess, Rachel, I hope that I've convinced you a little bit, and if not, I hope that we can respect each other and forgive one another and care about each other as people, despite these things. Do you want a hug or something?